Hello YouTube, De-bodgery here. So I thought I would do kind of a two-part video about chargers. The first video is going to be kind of ready-made chargers and stuff that I do to any charger and to my EVs. So these are two of my mini chargers that I have. So this one is set to 82 volts or 20S, and this one is set to 66 volts or 16S. This one is not quite as adjustable as this one. It's a different manufacturer or whatever inside. So this one will only max out at 73 volts, whereas this one here, it'll go down to like 44 volts, but 73 volts max is its limit. Whereas this one here will go down to about 40 volts and up to about 90 volts. Slightly better design, and you can also find these things like, so this is a 5 amp charger, this is a 3 amp charger, and these ones you can find these in like in 2 amps, and also I found bigger versions. So for a friend of mine, I built him a charger using 2 of these in the 10 amp version, so you could have a 20 amp charger. Cost him about $140 for 2 of those chargers, or no, it's just more than that. They were $75 a piece. So anyway, they were fairly expensive to get them 20 amps. And there's better solutions to get 20 amps for a lot less money. So anyway, these chargers, both of them, they do work the same way, and I'll show you this guy here. So on this end, you have the fan, you've got a fuse in here for the DC output side, you've got a red LED here indicating that's powered on. This LED over here, while it's charging, is red, and once charge is complete, it turns green. And on the other side, you have a input voltage switch for 110 or 220 volts. You've got a 3-prong plug, and you've got a fuse inside here. And otherwise, there's nothing on it. The labels on these things will vary widely because people will just put a different sticker on it and call it their own, but there's really nothing special about them. So this one says Wowjing lithium charger on it, and they were originally set up for whatever it was, something else. It says on here 72 volts, 3 amps, but it was not set to max out at 82 volts. It was set to max out at 72 volts. But I knew what I was getting, so I bought this thing knowing I'd full well be able to adjust it to 82 volts like I wanted. So that's what it is now, or adjust it to 90 volts if I wanted. But anyway, so this one, it says right on the label that it's got the little 3 amps with a little piece of red marker in it. And this guy here says 5 amps. It's the same way. These are very similar chargers. It's just this one doesn't have the same adjustability range as this one does. But you can buy these on eBay or Amazon. I bought this on Amazon. I paid $43 for it. And this one, I couldn't tell you how long ago I bought that one. I've had it for a long time. I probably scrounged it from somewhere. Anyway, so these chargers are readily available, and you can find them for 40, 60, 80 bucks, whatever. Those 10 amp versions, I paid $75 a piece for them. Got those on Amazon too. Anyway, whatever charger it is I have, I do 2 things. First of all of my EVs, they originally started out with XLR connectors on them. Which is really only reliable, like 5, 6, 7 amps. Really good XLR connectors, you might get like, say, 10 or 12 amps out of them. But in all cases, they were made from microphones, not for charging. And yet there's a lot of EVs that have an XLR port on them for charging. Well, I've long since outstripped that, and I've burned out a few XLR connectors because I charge at more than just a few amps that they can handle. So anyway, this is an XT90 connector. As you can see, that's the female end. And all of my chargers will have an XT90 connector on them. The female specifically. So that, and then all of the EVs will have the male connector. So there, see, it's got pins in it. They stick out. Those are pins. That's the male connector. The outside shell is not relevant. It's what the pins do. So holes, that's female. Sticky out pins, that's male. So all of my EVs have this connector in them somewhere for charging. And these XT90 connectors are, there's a couple different options for making them panel mounted. So there's a little aluminum band that will clamp around the outside of it. And it's got 2 little screw tabs on it so you can screw them into something. And then there's another version where they solder onto the onto the solder lugs in the back, and then they have 2 flanges out the side for a couple screws. Both of those are great panel mount options, so you can use an XT90 as a charging port. Highly reliable, very cheap, good for up to 90 amps. Whereas like most of your other charger port connections are much lower amperage, far more expensive, and way less reliable. XT90s are super cheap, super abundant, so they make a great charging port. And with that panel mount option, well, hey, do whatever you want after that. So all of my chargers, they all have an XT90 port on them, or end on them. So yeah, there's one cord out of one charger. There you go, XT90. There's the other one, XT90. And I'll show you any one of my chargers that have all the XT90s on them. Okay, so that's the first thing I do for any charger and for every EV is swap that out. And you know, again, commercially available, readily available chargers, you can cut the connector off of them. A lot of them will have XLR connectors on them and replace them with an XT90, which is a much better solution. So that's the first thing. It used to be that I put watt meters on my chargers, and I'll show you a couple examples of that after a while in another video. However, I have since done this. That way I only need 1 watt meter, because I'm probably not charging like 4 EVs at a time. I'm probably charging just 1. So this is a cheapy watt meter that is good for 50 amps, I think. It's got internal shunts in it. I forget what the actual value is, but it's plenty enough so that my biggest charger can use this watt meter. It's good up to 100 volts. So that's a limiting factor, which will become more clear in my second video. But this is a great little bench tool, and it will work with almost all of my chargers. So you'll notice I've got XT90 connectors on it. So, you know, here's the connector from the charger that plugs in here. So that's the input side on this thing. And then this is the output side going to the EV. And then, wherever it is, there it is. So this right here is an extension cord with 2 XT90 cables or connectors on it. So all it is you know, just a 2-wire cable that's 14 AUG inside, and you know, I can plug that into the watt meter, and then from there off to the EV, and then plug in the charger in here, and that way I can see amp draw, charging amp draw, and I can see amp hours going into the battery pack. And this watt meter is two-way. In other words, it'll measure current from here to here or from here to here. So, you know, current draw in or out, either way, it still will tell you total current, and it'll tell you amp hours too. So the other thing is, remember, this is a bench tool. This is a pre-charge on here. So that's a 30 amp rocker switch, and up inside there you can see a little bit of that white. Underneath there is 2 1K 10 watt resistors in parallel. So with that switch off, all current flow has to happen through those resistors. So, you know, like for on my bench, if I have like a motor controller and I want to gently pre-charge it, which I always want to gently pre-charge, then I plug it in through these 2 connectors with that switch off, and you don't get the arc and sparks, you don't get massive inrush current into the capacitors. The controller charges gently and slowly. So I give it like a 10 count, you know, 10 seconds after getting plugged in. And I can watch the watt meter too, because the voltage on there will slowly rise to whatever the capacitors charge up to. But it'll always be some percentage, you know, about like 80% of full charge, because there's resistors dropping some voltage across them. And then once I give it that 10 count, I close the switch, and now this makes a great bench tool for up to about 30 amps or so, 40 amps if you're really wanting to push it. But, you know, I'm not doing anything under load on the bench, so I'm not really worried about 30 or 40 amps going through it. That's about all the more it's ever going to need anyway. And all my chargers can work with that, with one exception, which I'll talk about after a while. So that's video 1. Basically, XT90s as charging ports on everything, and then this little bench watt meter solution, which the watt meter I think cost me $16. The XT90s cost me what, $1 for both of them. The rocker switch, I scrounged that from something, don't know where. But, you know, again, readily available. You can find 30 amp rocker switches on eBay or whatever for stupid cheap. And then a couple 1K resistors that probably cost me $1. So a very cheap tool, super handy. Alright, that's it for video 1. So folks, hey, stay away from that SARS virus. Don't let your body get sick with COVID-19. And I'll see you on video too.